Oh no, still squeaking. I'm expecting these to fly out any minute, I really am. Still squeaking. Okay. Electrics. Part 2. Okay, check the batteries. We've got one cell is a bit off. It's a bit low. One cell in the battery is a bit low. So maybe the thing to do is to run them down, charge them hard with the mains charger, which will charge them harder than the solar panels will, and then get them to equalise again with the solar panels. I don't know, but see if we can perk them up a bit. Now what I've got is on the bench then is an inverter, a Pheonix Victron Inverter. Now they sell these definitely to go in boats. I've checked. It's not waterproof at all. Okay, it's just a see-through. It's got a fan, grills. It's not waterproof at all. But Victron definitely sell it to go on boats. So it says in the instructions, do not expose to damp environments. Well, thanks. Okay, now I've got a fuse holder. Can't find the fuse. All these lines should be fused to the battery. I spent a long time yesterday looking at the Pacific Yacht Services, Pacific Marine. There's a big thing on YouTube. I mean, big in terms of like an extensive course of knowledge. So I looked at that. So do refer to that. Okay, right. I think we've got an emergency. I might need a mercy mission. There's a chick here. He doesn't look very mature. I think he might be prematurely out of the nest. I'm trying to pick him up. I put some gloves on so he doesn't get smelly with me. I'll try and pick him up and put him back in the nest. I don't know. Give it a go. This is harrowing. Well, I didn't pick him up. I didn't try. He hopped about down there. He seems to be able to hop quite well. I ain't seen no fluttering, but he must have fluttered to get to where he is because he was up in the tree. He was at least on the ladders earlier. But he's hopped then into like under them barrows. So I can't get from there. I don't want to scare him to death. But I feel like he might get eaten by a rat or something under there. Harrowing. This experience is putting into perspective any criticism or lack of understanding I've ever had for my own parents, for the parents of others. Worrying. Yeah, it's we wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for the care like heaped upon us. But the consequence of caring is to worry, is to think towards, is to be concerned, is to want to know, is to, if it's in the bush, I want to know, I want to see the birds flying there, I want to know that they've seen it, I want to know that it might have a fighting chance. I didn't touch it. I'm glad I looked on the internet. You're not supposed to touch them. You can hide in a bush and fly after a couple of days. It's fine. But I want to see the parents flying in. I want to know. I'm worried. So yeah. Thank you, Mummy. Well, it got stuck behind that thing. That see that? Got stuck behind there, so I've wedged it out with a log, and if they can get to it again, I think. Nearly flew. It was sat on top of that. It's a metal thing. It was sat on top of it, tried to fly up onto that concrete mixer. Didn't manage it. Fell down behind it. Got stuck there. She was going mad trying to get through the grill to get to it, but I had to move it. So we've got one in the nest, squeaking there, and one in over there, squeaking over there. Can you not fly, birdie? Can you not fly? A bit of a chance to climb up out of there. Right, I've just come out in the garden again. It's the next day. Recorded a thing, didn't record. It's definitely in there. It's definitely in there. Good. Okay, well, I thought that the chick in the nest is not being fed really very often at all. They're just going in there now, this second. This squeaking is the parents are not feeding it very often. So I was like, well, what are they doing? It's just up in this tree here. Parents. But the chick that came out yesterday is over here in this tree. Here it's squeaking. I've just seen them feeding it. So I managed to get up from down here. I got out from there. It's up in this tree being fed. There it is. There it is. Good. Well, that's the sun tracking sorted out. Shadows of these trees move across the garden during the day. Good. Right, where are we? We are they've gone today, so clearly no problem with the chick that stayed in the nest for another couple of days. They've all cleared out and gone away, so they'll be off out of my hands now, so there you go. So it's a bit of a relief, sort of a, there you are. Just in case anybody hasn't seen what a crimp actually really should be like a proper one. This is a proper one, and this is a proper crimper. Okay, it's a hydraulic crimper, and so to crimp a wire, we cut the full length to fill the boot. Slide all the wires in there. Yeah, that's it, that's all of them. Very good, right. Right, and then we'll look at the job. And we'll get this the right way round. So I want, this is lower than that, So if that's that way around, there's a curl on them. I'd like the wire to be like that. See the curve on the wire. The wire I want to be like that. So the ends then want to be like that and like that. So I can move the block. That's the orientation I want them to have. Okay, so I've got that gripped. A little bit to spare on the end of the connector. Push this right down hard. There we are. That is a good crimp. Okay, no gap at all. Okay, and with the right orientation, that is a good crimp. Right, good. So I've actually rewired the solar panels, just swapped the cables around in each pot. So the red wire is the red wire and the black wire is the black wire now, so in case anybody, or I forget, or anybody else looks at it ever, it's the right way around. Okay, what have we got? We've got a shunt for the 24 volt system, and that is the detector for the battery monitor. And the battery monitor, and so I've got the inverter switched onto the 24 volt pack. I've got the 24 volt pack disconnected from the solar panels. The solar panels are now in a 12 volt system, charging this 12 volt battery with its own MPPT. So we should get an idea. Now we've got the inverter running off these batteries and we're monitoring the output. This machine will add up the amp hours that are used. It's only running at 4 amps. 4 amps is nothing. If they're 145 amp hour battery pack, to run it at 4 amps, you probably get about 200 amp hours out of it. So you can do the maths. A long time, like maybe a couple of weeks or something. Right. Oh, that's good then. Well, it's good if the batteries have still got capacity. Let's hope they have. We shall see. So the machine, the battery monitor, will keep on adding up everything that is used until the batteries are next charged. So then we will know. And if that number doesn't get to 145 at least, then we were like, nah, problem. Then we charge it again, and then see what happens again, and then charge it again and see what happens, and then might be alright. Probably alright. They're basically new. I looked at them. You look inside and they look like brand new batteries. They've been used for... I've only had about maybe 10 charge cycles. They're supposed to have 100 charge cycles before they'll bed in. They're proper batteries, so they should be fine. They should be fine. Right, there you are. Good. That should be the end of the electrics. So we'll report back in a few days and see what the amp hour total has got to. The totalizer update. Very good. Yeah, see? Quite a funny noise, isn't it? Good. Right. What's 12 volt? Battery's now equalising. That's good. A 24 volt pack. We've got some nice numbers coming up now. So I've discovered it's a bit like I said yesterday. You know, oh well, 2.5 amps, 4 amps. I said, well, it'll last for days. but of course, if it's 145 for 24 hours in a day, anyway, so that like put in mind like small boat sailing, actually, because I mean I think Arwen can go at 6 knots max, and you're more likely to be sailing at like 4 knots really. 6 knots is pretty exceptional, I think. So 4 amps. But then, you know, as soon as you start to add up 4 amps, so we're sailing at 2.5 knots now. 2.5 amps. But, you know, since yesterday, we've not done 24 hours yet. We've used 59 amp hours, so nearly 60 amp hours. So, even going quite slowly, even using quite a small amount of current, consistently over a period of time, you rack up a lot of miles, you use quite a lot of energy. So, but that's good, really good. So 60 amp hours is about half of what I want to draw off the batteries. I'm going to draw them down to 80% discharge, which is 23.31 volts. And we are at 24.2. Yesterday we started off at 24.5, 25.6, something like that. 24.6. It dropped down immediately to that. I think. Anyway. Yeah, so if I get, you know, 80% out of it's about 150 max, I should think. I'll keep running it and then we'll see. Numbers. Good numbers so far. So I've got 60 out of it, so that's good. And it says it's only 51% of the charge is remaining. And at this discharge to 0, it will do it in 29 hours. There you are. So I run it for another day basically, so I'll equalise the 12 volt cells for another day, for the rest of this day, and then we'll hook back up to the solar power tomorrow. It's really frustrating. Well, it's not really frustrating, but you know, it's an absolutely glorious day. So we got the panels out in absolute pure sunshine, and we can only use the maximum input power to the batteries, which when they're equalising is about, I think it's doing it about 3 amps on 12 volt battery. Yesterday I was equalising with about 4 amps. The only time you ever see the actual full power from the cells going into the batteries is when they're bulk charging. So between, you know, 0 and you never get to 0. You can't discharge the battery beyond 20%. So between 20 and 80%, when it's really charging it, then you'll get 100 and, you know, nearly 200 watts off these panels. But when you're doing the absorption phase between 80% and 100%, you hardly see, you know, 40 watts, and a bit more when you're equalising, but not much more. So it would be kind of ideal to cycle, I suppose, the batteries between about 50-60% and 80%, and each day entering absorption somewhat at the end of the day, but you know, getting back to 100%, it takes hours in absorption to get to 100%. So that's the charge cycle range practically, because to go to 20% every time, not only does it take, you know, a couple of days, 3 days to charge them back up even at full power, maybe we'll measure that as well, is it shortens the life of the batteries. We don't do that. So between 45-50% and then 80%, that is the budget basically for a day. That's the ideal budget for a day. So however many amp hours that is, if it's 30 maybe, that'll be the budget for the day, which isn't too bad. If you're using 5 amps, that'll give you 6 hours running at 5 amps. I don't watch television and run my computer for 6 hours a day. I don't. It's only because I've got the NAS drive on and the wireless and what have you. It's running at 2.5 amps now. That's still not sustainable. So one would have to switch that off and then have sessions. But, you know, being on a boat, you ain't going to be sitting watching the television all the time, are you? Not really. I would have thought so. You're sailing and walking about and sitting on the bank and, you know, good. Right, more numbers tomorrow. It's Friday. Friday. More numbers tomorrow. Right, I'm going to get on the boat. We're going to get on with the boat. Going to get on with the boat. Going to get on with the boat. Ugh. Well, right, it just happened. Just woken up, I haven't even cleaned my teeth or anything yet. I left the lights on overnight to run the inverter down to nothing, and so 114 amp hours down to 23.3. So that's 20% from 100%, and we consumed 114 amp hours. So that's the capacity. So that's the 80% capacity. It should have about 170, about 180, 100% capacity at the rate of discharge that I was using. I'll work that out later. So it's not 100% of the capacity they should have, but it's not terrible. Was it 114? Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. It's maybe, you know, 75% of the capacity that it should have. And they're very new, as we said. So, as I said. How many people are there here? Good. Okay. Well, I think about the implications of that. What I'm going to do now, I was going to charge these up with the solar cells, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to charge them at 30 amps because they're coming up from 20%. So I'll let them rest whilst I go and have breakfast and charge them at 30 amps and see how long they take to charge up. Very good. Oh yeah, look, that's not bad. Okay, I worked out the target yesterday. The target is 135 amp hours, and we got to 114. Well, that's almost there, isn't it? That's maybe 90, 85 or 90%. 135 target, which is that's 80% of 180 or something. I got 114. That's good. That's good. Mate, they've been in storage now. It's the first discharge they've had in like 5 years. Literally. Okay. I think they're alright. I think it's going to be okay. Okay, 31 amps charging there, so I've got both battery chargers hooked up, and the battery chargers, now I've got the battery monitor on, they have to go on the other side of the shunt. So I've put a little just a little lead so the negative clamps can share the terminal. But it seems okay. It seems okay on here. Good. It reckons 3 hours to full charge. Well, we'll see that. I've recorded the time. Keeping a little record. Keeping a little record. I mean, don't do that. Check the book before. I mean, it probably hasn't hurt them. I don't know. Oh, hope not. Yeah, it's maximum charging is 13% of capacity actually, so 30 amps is too much. You can charge an AGM battery at 20% of capacity, but flooded batteries, no, please don't do that. between 10 and 13% of the capacity. So I've turned one of those chargers off. So we've been charging for a couple of hours. No, an hour and a half, couple of hours. We've done nearly to 80%. 48 amp hours remaining to put back in the batteries. Back down to charging at 15 amps now. So I'm sure they'll be fine, I'm sure. I mean, maybe. I don't know, I'll do some more reading on it. That barrow is working really very well, actually, so good. Well, let's round this. Alright, mate. Let's round up then for the week. Good. So, nearly at full capacity now. I mean, I did overcharge them. Well, I charged them at a higher rate than is recommended. I doubt it damaged them, frankly. They're built to be very hardcore batteries. 24 amp hours left to go. 95% capacity full, about half an hour left to charge, the battery monitor reckons. The battery monitor will learn, as the batteries are charged, their capacity and their charging profile, just with the one charger there topping them off. And so that it gets to learn. Good. Well, that's got both the systems set up then. So the 12 volt system is now equalised again today. It is now floating, so it's just keeping it in a state of full charge. The 24 volt system is nearly there. I'll hook that back up again to the inverter when it's fully charged, and just live with it. Live with it, and just get used to the amount of power that is available each day. Live by that amount of power. Find out really sort of what margin I have. And the idea being that there are sort of 3 interchangeable uses for the 24 volt system. So what I'm using it for now, which is the computers and the monitor and working broadly, video editing and stuff, so that is a use, which is, you know, intermittent. I don't do that every day. I don't expect to do that every day, certainly not when I'm sailing distances or working on up and down the river. So that use interchangeably with using the outboard motor. I'm reckoning on, well, the full capacity of the batteries as I tried it on the river took me 22 miles with a continuous output then, well, not continuous because I was going through locks, but a continuous no more than using 13 amps, which was taking me at about 2 knots, so it's quite slow, but I did 22 miles in the day. So if I've got 7 amps coming off the panels, then that's equivalent to half of that complete power output. So I could either go up, flatten the batteries completely in a day still and charge them up overnight at a charging point, but go faster, so use, you know, 21 amps, maybe get sort of 3 knots. Or if I'm not using charging points, then it's still realistic to do 20 miles a day, and then just have a day off charging with the panels, and then have a full charge for the next day, and then in that way the batteries will never be fully discharged. They will last much longer if I never fully discharge them. So those are sorts of good things. And even if I'm using charging points and I go at 2 knots, which is quite leisurely, not a charge about, it's quite leisurely. Then again, we can go 20 miles in a day, which is quite a long way, and is enough to bridge the longest distance between charging points on the River Thames, for example, and still only run the batteries down to 50%. So that'd be good. That would be good. And then, if I'm not using the outboard motor and I'm not using the computer, so say I was sailing around the islands and I stocked up in Oban, then I could use the fridge, you know, because I'm on the river, I'm eating out in pubs, having that sort of life, and using the outboard motor. If I've got some work to do, then, you know, I can live without a fridge, but, you know, actually having ice creams That's quite nice. Or having milk, or having, you know, fresh produce on chill whilst I'm sailing around. That's good. So those are the three things for the 24-volt system. Everything else, as I've said, separate on the 12-volt system. Radio, navigation lights, all that sort of stuff. So the 24-volt system is really sort of toys, basically. Good. Okay. And I'm very glad then that it's not expired. Thank goodness for that. Because it was always going to be much cheaper to buy an outboard motor. It just really was. An outboard motor is what, £500-700. This is much more than that. But I don't want to sit next to an outboard motor, and I don't have an engine on the boat, and I don't want to smell diesel, nor do I want to smell petrol, nor do I want to have it on the boat. I don't. It's all just like, I don't want to sit next to it. An electric motor is not silent. Don't ever think that it is. There's a bit of a to it, but it's quiet. It is, and it's nice. So good. Glad it's not expired. Very happy about that. Thank you for tuning in. Do subscribe if you do not already, or like, and it really helps me out, apparently. And yeah, leave a comment. It's seeing comments and having a chat in the comment section is what I really enjoy, actually. So I'll answer every comment, as long as I don't pile up enormously, but as long as they're not offensive. No, don't be rude. But yeah, I've had some really lovely comments, and thank you for those, and I do answer them. So thanks for that, and yeah, see you again. Take care. Off grid.